You know when he sent over those articles about a Tesla Cybertruck exploding outside the Trump International Hotel in Vegas on New Year's Day? I thought, okay, this has got to be a prank. But the more I read, the more intrigued I was,
Mm.
and kind of the more tragic it seemed.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of layers to this one, and some of them are pretty unsettling.
Yeah, we've got reports from the BBC, CNN, and Reuters. And hopefully we can sort through all of this together, figure out what happened. There's even a possible connection to another incident that same day in New Orleans.
Yeah, the timing and some of the common elements, it really makes you wonder.
Yeah, so let's start with the Las Vegas explosion itself. Picture this, it's New Year's Day, about 8:40 in the morning. A Tesla Cybertruck pulls up to the valet area of the Trump International Hotel, and suddenly smoke starts billowing out. Then boom, a huge explosion rocks the area.
Witnesses described a scene of chaos, debris flying everywhere, people running for cover. Must have been terrifying.
It's amazing with an explosion that powerful. Only minor injuries were reported among the 7 people who were hurt.
Yeah, and, the Cybertruck's design. As divisive as it may be aesthetically, it might have actually played a factor in minimizing the damage. Seems like the force of the blast was directed upwards,
Yeah.
which could have saved lives.
Yeah, Sheriff McMahon even thanked Elon Musk publicly for the Cybertruck's tough build. It's
Mm.
an interesting silver lining, I guess you could say.
It really highlights how, even in tragedies, unexpected factors can come into play.
So let's talk about the man behind the wheel. Matthew Alan Livelsberger, a 37-year-old active-duty U.S. Army Green Beret. And this isn't just any soldier. This guy has a serious service record.
Yeah, Green Berets are the U.S. Army's main Special Forces unit. They're known for their expertise in unconventional warfare. Livelsberger was a Special Forces intelligence sergeant. He earned a Bronze Star for Valor, a combat infantryman badge, which is not easy to get. And he'd been deployed to Afghanistan 5 times. He was on approved leave at the time, visiting family in Colorado.
Wow, 5 deployments. That's a lot. And this is where the story takes a turn. Investigators found a lot more than just a crashed vehicle when they went through the wreckage of the Cybertruck.
Yeah, it was concerning. 2 semi-automatic pistols. We know Levelsberger purchased them legally. Gasoline canisters, large firework mortars. These mortars are designed to shoot high in the air and explode, a detonating device, and evidence of a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head.
So it seems clear that authorities believe he set off the explosion intentionally after taking his own life.
That's what it looks like, yeah. But, of course, the investigation is ongoing.
But the big question is why? What could drive a decorated soldier to do this?
That's the million-dollar question. So far, they haven't found a clear motive, but they have ruled out any connection to terrorism.
That's interesting, especially because of the timing. This happened the same day as that attack in New Orleans, where a man drove a rented truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street.
Yeah, 14 people died in that attack. It's a reminder of how random these acts of violence can seem.
And the man behind the wheel in New Orleans was also a military veteran. It makes you wonder, could there be some kind of connection? Especially since both of them used Turo to rent their vehicles.
The timing and the fact that they're both veterans and the rental vehicles, it definitely raises questions, but we have to let investigators do their job and not jump to conclusions before we know the facts. You're right, it's important to let the investigation play out. But you also have to consider all the possibilities. What are the odds of 2 veterans using Turo to commit these acts on the same day? Is it just a coincidence? Or is it something more?
Yeah, and in Vegas it seems planned, but there's no motive. And in New Orleans, the guy claimed to have ties to ISIS. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is. You have to look at everything, even things that don't seem related at first.
Right, so let's look at the similarities and differences. For starters, both Livelsberger and the New Orleans attacker were in the military.
Yeah. And they both served at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, though not at the same time or in the same unit.
And they were both deployed to Afghanistan in 2009.
Right. And again, no indication they were in the same place at the same time.
Okay, so shared experiences, but no direct link. And then, of course, they both used Turo to rent the vehicles.
Right, which isn't necessarily suspicious on its own. Turo's a pretty popular service, but it's definitely something investigators will be looking into.
You know, it makes you wonder, if Turo could put anything in place to try and prevent this sort of thing, maybe something good could come out of this.
Yeah. This might spark a conversation about car-sharing services and safety.
But the biggest difference between the two cases is that the New Orleans attacker said he was with ISIS, And there's no evidence of that with Livelsberger.
That's a really important difference. Investigators are really focused on that, trying to understand the motivation in each case.
So what happens now? What's next in the investigation?
Well, the police are going through Livelsberger's phone and computer, trying to figure out what led to this. Did he leave any messages? Was there anything that hinted at his plan or how he was feeling?
And I'm guessing the FBI is searching his home in Colorado, looking for the same kind of clues.
Exactly. It's like piecing together a broken mirror. Every little piece is important.
It's just so strange. He had all these medals, but then he did this. Could it be because of what he went through in Afghanistan? Like PTSD or something?
It's definitely something to think about. Deployments can be really hard on people, even for highly decorated soldiers. PTSD, depression, other mental health issues, you can't always see it. And it can lead to really tragic situations.
It makes you think about all the veterans and how we can do more to help them, not just when they're serving, but when they come home too. How can we understand what they're going through? What can we do to support them so they can get better and adjust back to normal life?
Those are important questions. It can be really tough to transition back to civilian life. We need to create a culture where it's okay to ask for help. Make sure veterans have access to mental health resources, no matter their rank or service record.
It's heartbreaking. This guy dedicated his life to serving the country, but maybe he felt alone in the end. We need to do better. Create a system that supports and protects people like him.
I agree. It's time to go beyond just thanking our veterans and actually do something to help them. This is a terrible situation, but maybe it can lead to some positive changes.
So while we wait for more answers, there are some things to consider. We have to be aware of what veterans go through. We need better mental health support for them. Most importantly, we need to be more compassionate and understanding. Make sure nobody feels alone in their struggles. It really does make you think about how we treat veterans. But it also makes you wonder about people in general. What makes someone snap like that?
Yeah, and it's important to remember we don't have all the answers yet. The investigation's still going on. There are pieces missing.
Like, what was he thinking? Was this just a personal thing? Or was there something else going on?
Right, and that's what makes this so complicated. There might be a whole other side to this story that we haven't even thought about yet.
It's like looking at a painting without knowing anything about the artist. You can see the brushstrokes and the colors, but you don't really get it.
That's a good way to put it. And in this case, the artist isn't around to tell us what it means. We have to figure it out from the evidence and what people who knew him have to say.
And even then, we might never know the whole story.
That's true.
But I think it's important to try. It makes us ask tough questions and really think about what makes people do the things they do.
I agree. It's about more than just solving this case. It's about understanding people and why they do things and how we can make the world a better place.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we may never know for sure what happened with Matthew Livelsberger, but I hope this has made people think about what veterans go through and how important mental health is and how we need to be there for each other.
I think that's a great point. It's easy to forget that behind every story there are real people.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It was definitely a heavy one, but I think it was important to talk about.
It was, and hopefully it gave everyone something to think about.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed,
Yeah.
and keep asking questions.